Hi everyone, it's Cynthia at Country Concessions. I am here to show you next month's block. Isn't that gorgeous? This is a wonderful block. It's quite piecey, but it is all techniques that you have done before and is really quite easy to put together. But as I say, it's relatively piecey. So you have flying geese units in these center side sections. This one is done with the accent color with light colored wings, and this one is our medium color with our accent color as the wings. So it makes kind of tulip shape or an arrow shape depending on what way you look at it. So very easy to make. And the rest of the block is pretty much made up with half square triangles. So you can see we've got lots of half square triangles, 3 half square triangles in these corner units plus 1 square. And the center unit is completely made with half square triangles, making up lots of nice and different patterns. So all these techniques you've done before, so we are not going to go over the techniques again, but I thought that I would show you a way to make multiple half square triangles at one time. So there's techniques to make 4 half square triangles at one time or 8 half square triangles at one time. I'm going to show you those quickly. It certainly helps when you're making blocks such as this one where you have lots and lots of half square triangles all with the same fabrics. It just allows you to complete the project more efficiently if you want to look at it that way. I'm also working on a personal project that is all half square triangles, so I've been using the 8 at a time technique for that one. So I've layered up my things to show you here to make it a little bit easier. So to make 4 half square triangles at a time, we're going to start with 2 fabrics, each cut to a larger square size, and we're going to place those right sides together. Now, to get the size of this square, what you're going to do is make note of the finished size of half square triangle unit that you want to end up with. If you go online, you will find when you Google 4 HST at a time, there are a lot of different charts that will show you the size of the square you're going to cut to get the appropriate finished unit. I'm just going to show you that. I literally just downloaded this from the internet. It may be upside down on your screen, but you'll get the idea. So we've got our cut square size, which is what I've cut here. Trim the half square triangle to 2.5 inches is what we're doing, and the finished half square triangle is going to be 2 inches. So it gives you all that information. This says we're going to start with a 4¼ inch square, and I have used the 4¼ inch. If you like a little more trimmed down room, you can use 4.5 inches, and it'll just give you that little bit of extra. Anyway, you get those online. What you're going to do is you're going to stitch around the entire perimeter of this square. So I have marked it with a friction pen so you can see where I'm going to stitch. When you do your stitching, you of course don't need to mark it. You're just going to use your 1/4 inch ruler. Once you've got that all stitched all around the outside edge there, you're going to take a ruler and you're going to cut this from diagonal to diagonal that way, and then from diagonal to diagonal this way. And you end up with 4 triangles that look like this. Now, when you are using a square of this sort, the outside edge is on the straight of grain. These side parts of your half square triangle units are on the bias. So that is something that you should be aware of. The bias is a lot stretchier than the straight of grain. So if you press with vigor, you can get some distortion in the outside of the half square triangle. So when we press them open, we want that to remain nice and stable. You can also use spray such as Best Press or another starch or starch alternative, and that's going to make your little unit a lot more stable. So that is giving me my 4 half square triangles. So what I end up with is 4 little units that look just like that. And then I can take my Tucker trimmer or a similar type of ruler, line down the center there, And then I'm just going to trim around those outside edges, flip this around, trim again, line up the line, and then I get a lovely, beautiful, and perfect half square triangle unit, just like that. So 4 half square units at a time. So that is one method, and that works fabulously. The second method is to make 8 half square triangle units at a time. So once again, we can go to our friend the internet, and it will give us the measures that we need to have to produce the end result that we want. So if I'm making a 2-inch finished unit, I will need a 5 3/4 inch square. Now my square here is a much larger. This is actually a 10-inch square because I am making larger size units. Mine does not use 2.5-inch square units. It uses 4.5-inch square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 fabrics and line them up right sides together. I have the size from my handy chart from the internet, and then I'm going to mark a line diagonal corner to corner in both directions. Once I've got that marked, I'm going to sew on each side of each of those lines a 1/4 inch away. So again, you don't need to mark that stitching line. You can use your 1/4 inch foot on your sewing machine. And I hope you can see my stitching lines on here. I've got my stitching lines, 2 lines that were a 1/4 inch away from my marked line, which has now disappeared because I used a friction pen. Once I have done that, I'm going to again take my ruler and I'm going to mark diagonal to diagonal on here. And I'm going to cut that way. And then I'm going to cut the other diagonal. I love doing this because it produces such great results so fast. So I've got those 2 lines cut. I don't move anything. And then I'm going to mark, I'm going to find the center point of my square, and I'm going to cut this way as well. And then I'm going to do the same thing sideways. So just making sure I've got everything lined up here. There we go. And across this way. Now when I take my ruler away, I spread those guys out. I've got a little thread caught there. Look at that. Say, I've got it. Little nick in my blade possibly. Okay, there are 8 half square triangles. Isn't that amazing? So then I press all those guys open like so, and I'm going to just get the ones I press this guy open, and I'm going to get my Tucker trimmer, which I put somewhere. There it is. Okay, and I'm doing 4.5, so I'm just going to line up the 4.5 inch line. I'm not actually going to cut this because it's not pressed yet, but I line that up. Maybe it's 4 inch. I can't even remember because it's so long since I worked on this project. It must be 4. So I'm going to line that up there with the press, and I'm going to trim, turn it around and trim again, and I get multiple beautiful half square triangle units, all the same. So a fabulous method indeed. So that's 2 tricks that you can use if you are stitching multiple half square triangle units. And I hope you have fun making this block and perhaps try a few of those. Thanks everybody. We'll talk to you again soon.